Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Raven's Readings. I do these readings twice a week from various classics. If you subscribe to my free Substack newsletter at ravensview.substack.com, you'll get notified of the next episode and can leave your comments or suggestions. And you can also check out there my flash fiction writings or musings on the world. I'll be reading to you from Very Good Jeeves. It's a collection of short stories written by P.G. Wodehouse in 1930. Jeeves, a very competent valet, and his hapless employer, Bertie Wooster, were characters in dozens of short stories by Wodehouse. The stories are told from the point of view of Bertie. This is the penultimate story in this collection, so if you have any suggestions for the next Olden Days book, let me know. The Indian Summer of an Uncle. Ask anyone at the Drones, and they will tell you that Bertram Wooster is a fellow whom it is dashed difficult to deceive. Old lynx eye is about what it amounts to. I observe and deduce. I weigh the evidence and draw my conclusions. And that is why Uncle George had not been in my midst for more than 2 minutes before I, so to speak, saw all. To my trained eye, the thing stuck out a mile. Yet it seemed so dashed absurd. Consider the facts, if you know what I mean. I mean to say, for years, right back to the time when I first went to Eton, this bulging relative had been one of the recognized eyesores of London. He was fat then, and day by day in every way had been getting fatter ever since, till now tailors measure him just for the sake of the exercise. He is what they call a prominent London clubman, one of those birds in tight morning coats and grey toppers, whom you see toddling along St. James's Street on fine afternoons, puffing a bit as they make a grade. Slip a ferret into any good club between Piccadilly and Pall Mall, and you'll startle half a dozen Uncle Georges. He spends his time lunching and dining at the Buffers, and between meals sucking down spots in the smoking room and talking about the lining of his stomach to anyone who will listen. About twice a year his liver lodges a formal protest, and he goes off to the rigors of Harrogate or Carlsbad to get planed down. Then back again and on with the program. The last bloke in the world, in short, who would you think would ever fall a victim to the divine passion? And yet, if you will believe me, that was absolutely the strength of it. This whole pestilence blew in on me one morning at about the hour of the after-breakfast cigarette. "Oh, Bertie," he said. "Hello. You know those ties you've been wearing? Where did you get them?" "Butcher's in the Burlington Arcade." "Oh, thank you." He walked across to the mirror and stood in front of it, gazing at himself in an earnest manner. "Smut on your nose?" I asked courteously. Then I suddenly perceived that he was wearing a sort of horrible simper, and I confess it chilled the blood to no little extent. Uncle George, with face in repose, is hard enough on the eye. Simpering, he goes right above the odds. "Ha," he said. He heaved a long sigh and turned away. Not too soon, for the mirror was on the point of cracking. "I'm not so old," he said, in a musing sort of voice. "So old as what?" Properly considered, I'm in my prime. Besides, what a young and inexperienced girl needs is a man of weight and years to lean on. The sturdy oak, not the sapling." It was at this point that, as I said above, I saw all. "Great Scott, Uncle George," I said, "you aren't thinking of getting married?" "Well, who isn't?" he said. "But you aren't," I said. "Oh, yes, I am. Why not?" Well, marriage is an honorable state." "Oh, absolutely." "It might make you a better man, Bertie." "Oh, who says so?" "I say so. Marriage might turn you from a frivolous young scallywag into a non-scallywag. Yes, confound you, I am thinking of getting married, and if Aunt Agatha comes sticking her oar in, I shall know what to do about it." He exited on that big line, and I rang the bell for Jeeves. The situation seemed to be one that called for a cozy talk. "Jeeves," I said. "Sir?" "You know my Uncle George?" "Yes, sir. His lordship has been familiar to me for some years." I don't mean do you know my Uncle George. I mean, do you know what my Uncle George is thinking of doing? Contracting a matrimonial alliance, sir. Good Lord, did he tell you? No, sir. Oddly enough, I chanced to be acquainted with the other party in the matter. The girl? The young person, yes, sir. It was from her aunt, with whom she resides, that I received the information that his lordship was contemplating matrimony. Oh, who is she? A Miss Platt, sir, Miss Rhoda Platt, of Wisteria Lodge, Kitchener Road, East Dulwich. Young? Yes, sir. Oh, the old fathead. Yes, sir. The expression is one which I would, of course, not have ventured to employ myself, but I confess to thinking his lordship somewhat ill-advised. One must remember, however, that it is not unusual to find gentlemen of a certain age yielding to what might be described as a sentimental urge. They appear to experience what I may term a sort of Indian summer, a kind of temporarily renewed youth. The phenomenon is particularly noticeable, I am given to understand, in the United States of America, among the wealthier inhabitants of the city of Pittsburgh. It is notorious, I am told, that sooner or later, unless restrained, they always endeavor to marry chorus girls. Why this should be, I am at a loss to say, but I saw that this was going to take some time, so I tuned it out. From something in Uncle George's manner, Jeeves, as he referred to my Aunt Agatha's probable reception of the news, I gather that Miss Platt is not of the noblesse? No, sir. She is a waitress at his lordship's club. My God, the proletariat? The lower middle classes, sir. Well, yes, by stretching it a bit, perhaps. Still, you know what I mean. Yes, sir. Rummy things, Jeeves, I said thoughtfully, this modern tendency to marry waitresses. If you remember, before he settled down, young Bingo Little was repeatedly trying to do it. Yes, sir. Odd. Yes, sir. Well, still, there it is, of course. The point to be considered now is, what will Aunt Agatha do about this? You know her, Jeeves. She's not like me. I'm broad-minded. If Uncle George wants to marry waitresses, let him, say I. I hope that the rank is but the penny stamp. Guinea stamp, sir. All right, guinea stamp, though I don't believe there is such a thing. Shouldn't have thought they came higher than 5 bob. Well, as I was saying, I maintain that the rank is but the guinea stamp, and a girl's a girl for all that. For that, sir, the poet Burns wrote in the North British dialect. Well, that then, if you prefer it. I have no preference in the matter, sir. It is simply that the poet Burns. Never mind about the poet Burns. No, sir. Forget the poet Burns. Very good, sir. Expunge the poet Burns from your mind. I will do so immediately, sir. What we have to consider is not the poet Burns, but the Aunt Agatha. She will kick, Jeeves. Very probably, sir. And worse, she will lug me into the mess. There's only one thing to be done. Pack the toothbrush and let us escape while we may, leaving no address. Very good, sir. At that moment the bell rang. Ha, I said. Someone at the door. Yes, sir. Probably Uncle George back again. I'll answer it. You go ahead and get with the packing. Very good, sir. I sauntered along the passage, whistling carelessly, and there on the mat was Aunt Agatha herself, not a picture. Nasty jar. Oh, hello, I said. It seemed but little good to tell her that I was out of town and not expected back for some weeks. I wish to speak to you, Bertie, said the family curse. I am greatly upset. She legged it into my sitting room and ball-planed it into a chair. I followed, thinking wistfully of Jeeves packing in the bedroom. That suitcase would not be needed now. I knew what she must have come about. I've just seen Uncle George, I said, giving her a lead. So have I, said Aunt Agatha, shivering in a marked manner. He called on me while I was still in bed to inform me of his intention of marrying some impossible girl from South Norwood. East Dulwich, I've been informed. Well, East Dulwich, then. It's the same thing. But who told you? Jeeves. And how, pray you, does Jeeves come to know all about it? There are very few things in this world, Aunt Agatha, I said gravely, that Jeeves does not know all about. He's met the girl. Who is she? One of the waitresses at the Buffers? I had expected this to register, and it did. The relative let out a screech rather like the Cornish Express going through a junction. I take it from your manner, Aunt Agatha, I said, that you want this thing stopped? Of course it must be stopped. Then there is but one policy to pursue. Let me ring for Jeeves and ask for his advice. Aunt Agatha stiffened visibly, very much the grande dame of the old regime. Are you seriously considering that we should discuss this intimate family matter with your manservant? Absolutely. Jeeves will find the way. I have always known that you are an imbecile, Bertie, said the flesh and blood, now down at about 3 degrees Fahrenheit. But I did suppose that you had some proper feeling, some pride, some respect for your old position. Well, you know what the poet Burns says. She squelched me with a glance. Obviously, the only thing to do, she said, is to offer this girl money. Money? Well, certainly. Will not be the first time your uncle has made such a course necessary. We sat for a bit brooding. The family always sits brooding when the subject of Uncle George's early romance comes up. I was too young to be actually in on it at the time, but I've had the details frequently from many sources, including Uncle George. Let him get even the slightest bit pickled and tell you the whole story, sometimes twice in an evening. It was a barmaid at the Criterion just before he came into the title. Her name was Maudie, and he loved her dearly, but the family would have none of it. They dug down into the sock and paid her off. Just one of those human interest stories, if you know what I mean. I wasn't so sold on this money-offering scheme. Well, just as you like, of course, I said, but you're taking an awful chance. I mean, whenever people do it in the novels and plays, they always get the dickens of a welt. The girl gets the sympathy of the audience every time. She just draws herself up and looks at them with clear, steady eyes, causing them to feel not a little cheesy. If I were you, I would sit tight and let nature take its course. I don't understand you, she said. Well, consider for a moment what Uncle George looks like. No Greta Garbo, believe me. I should simply let the girl go on looking at him. Take it from me, Aunt Agatha. I've studied human nature, and I don't believe there's a female in the world who could see Uncle George fairly often in those waistcoats he wears, without feeling that it was due to her better self to give him the gate. Besides, this girl sees him at meal times, and Uncle George with his head down among the foodstuffs is a spectacle which... If it's not troubling you too much, Bertie, I should be greatly obliged if you will stop driveling. Just as you say. All the same, I think you're going to find it dashed embarrassing offering this girl money. I'm not proposing to do so. You will undertake the negotiations. Me? Oh, certainly. I should think £100 will be ample, but I will give you a blank cheque, and you are at liberty to fill it in for a higher sum, if it becomes necessary. The essential point is that, cost what it may, your uncle must be released from this entanglement. So you're going to shove this off on me? It's quite time you did something for the family. Okay, but when she draws herself up and looks at me with clear, steady eyes, what do I do for an encore? There's no need to discuss the matter any further, she said. You can get down to East Dulwich in half an hour. There's a frequent service of trains. I will remain here to await your report. But listen, Bertie, you will go and see this woman immediately. Yes, but dash it. Bertie! I threw in the towel. Oh, right-ho, if you say so. I do say so. Oh, well, in that case, right-ho. I don't know if you've ever tooled off to East Dulwich to offer a strange female 100 smackers to release your Uncle George. In case you haven't, I may tell you there are plenty of things that are lots better fun. I didn't feel any too good driving to the station. I didn't feel any too good in the train. And I didn't feel any too good as I walked to Kitchener Road. But the moment when I felt least good was when I had actually pressed the front doorbell and a rather grubby-looking maid had let me in and show me down a passage and into a room with pink paper on the walls and a piano in the corner, a lot of photographs on the mantelpiece. Barring a dentist's waiting room, which it rather resembles, There isn't anything that quells the spirit so much than one of those suburban parlors. They're extremely apt to have stuffed birds in glass cases standing about on small tables, and if there's one thing which gives the man of sensibility a sinking feeling that it's the cold, accusing eyes of a ptarmigan, or whatever it may be, that has had its interior organs removed and sawdust substituted. There were 3 of these cases in the parlor of Wisteria Lodge, so that wherever you looked, you were sure to connect. 2 were singletons, the third a family group, consisting of a father bullfinch, a mother bullfinch, and little master bullfinch, the last named of whom wore an expression that was definitely that of a thug and did more to dampen my joie de vivre than all the rest of them put together. I had moved to the window and was examining the epidystra in order to avoid this creature's gaze when I heard the door opening, and turning, found myself confronted by something which, since it could hardly be the girl, I took to be the aunt. "Oh, good morning," I said. The words came out rather ruefully, for I was feeling a bit on the stunned side. I mean to say, the room being so small and this exhibit so large, I had got the feeling of wanting air. There are some people who don't seem to be intended to be close to, and this aunt was one of them. Billowy curves, if you know what I mean. I should think that in her days she must have been a very handsome girl, though even then on the substantial side. By the time she came into my life, she had taken on a good deal of excess weight. She looked like a photograph of an opera singer of the 80s. Also, the orange hair and the magenta dress. However, she was a friendly soul. She seemed glad to see Bertram. She smiled broadly. "Ah, so here you are at last," she said. "Couldn't make anything of this, eh? But I don't think you'd better see my niece just yet. She's just having a nap." "Oh, in that case, it seems a pity to wake her, doesn't it?" "Oh, absolutely," I said, relieved. "When you get the influenza, you don't sleep at night, and then if you doze off in the morning, well, it seems a pity to wake someone, doesn't it?" "Miss Platt has influenza?" "Oh, that's what we think it is. But of course you'll be able to say. But we needn't waste time. Since you're here, you can take a look at my knee." "Your knee?" I'm all for knees at their proper time, and as you might say, in the proper place, but somehow this didn't seem the moment. However, she carried on according to plan. "What do you think of that knee?" she asked, lifting the 7 veils. Of course, one has to be polite. "Terrific," I said. "You wouldn't believe how it hurts me sometimes." "Really?" "A sort of shooting pain. It just comes and goes. And I'll tell you a funny thing." "What's that?" I said, feeling I could do with a good laugh. "Lately, I've been having the same pain just here at the end of the spine." "You don't mean it." "I do, like red-hot needles. I wish you'd have a look at it." "At your spine?" "Yes." I shook my head. Nobody is fonder of a bit of fun than myself, and I'm all for a bohemian camaraderie and making a party go and all that, but there's a line, and we Woosters know when to draw it. "It can't be done," I said austerely. "Not spines, knees, yes, spines, no," I said. She seemed surprised. "Well," she said, "you're a funny sort of doctor, I must say." I'm pretty quick, as I said before, and I began to see that something in the nature of a misunderstanding must have arisen. "Doctor? Well, you call yourself a doctor, don't you? Did you think I was a doctor? Aren't you a doctor?" "No, not a doctor." We'd got it straightened out. The scales had fallen from our eyes. We knew where we were. I had suspected that she was a genial soul. She had now endorsed this view. I don't think I've ever heard a woman laugh so heartily. "Well, that's the best thing," she said, borrowing my handkerchief to wipe her eyes. "Did you ever? But if you aren't the doctor, who are you?" "Wooster's the name. I came to see Miss Platt." "What about?" This was the moment, of course, when I should have come out with a check and sprung the big effort, but somehow I couldn't make it. You know how it is. Offering people money to release your uncle is a scaly enough job at best, and when the atmosphere's not right, the shot simply isn't on the board. "Oh, just came to see her, you know," I said. I had a rather bright idea. My uncle heard she was seedy, don't you know, and asked me to look in and make inquiries," I said. "Your uncle?" Lord Yaxley. Oh, so you are Lord Yaxley's nephew. That's right. I suppose he's always popping in and out here, what? No, I've never met him. You haven't? No, Rhoda talks about him, of course, but for some reason she's never so much as asked him to look in for a cup of tea. I began to see that this Rhoda knew her business. If I'd been a girl with someone wanting to marry me and I knew that there was an exhibit like this aunt hanging around the home, I too should have thought twice about inviting him to call until the ceremony was over and he'd actually signed on the dotted line. I mean to say, a thoroughly good soul, heart of gold beyond a doubt, but not the sort of thing you wanted to spring on Romeo before the time was ripe. I suppose you were all very surprised when you heard about it, she said. Surprised is right. Of course, nothing is definitely settled yet. Oh, you don't mean that? I thought, oh, no, she's just thinking it over. I see. Of course, she feels it a great compliment, but then sometimes she wonders if he isn't too old. My Aunt Agatha has rather the same idea. Of course, a title is a title. Yes, there's that. What do you think about it yourself? Oh, it doesn't matter what I think. There's no doing anything with girls these days, is there? Not much. What I often say is, I wonder what girls are coming to. Still, there it is. Absolutely. There didn't seem much reason why the conversation shouldn't go on forever. She had the air of a woman who has settled down for the day, but at this point the maid came in, said the doctor had arrived. I got up. I'll be tooling off then. If you must. I think I'd better. Well, pip-pip. Toodaloo, I said, and out into the fresh air. Knowing what was waiting for me at home, I would have preferred to go to the club and spend the rest of the day there, but the thing had to be faced. Well, said Aunt Agatha as I trickled into the living room. Well, yes and no, I replied. What do you mean? Did she refuse the money? Not exactly. She accepted it? Well, there again, not precisely. I explained what had happened. I wasn't expecting her to be any too frightfully pleased, and it's as well that I wasn't, because she wasn't. In fact, as the story unfolded, her comments became fruitier and fruitier, and when I had finished, she uttered an exclamation that nearly broke a window. It sounded something like "gore," as if she had started to say "Gord blimey," and had remembered her ancient lineage just in time. I'm sorry, I said, and can a man say more? I lost my nerve. The old morale suddenly turned blue on me. It's the sort of thing that might have happened to anyone. I never heard of anything so spineless in my life. I shivered like a warrior whose old wound hurts him. I'd be most awfully obliged, Aunt Agatha, I said, if you did not use that word spine. It awakens memories. The door opened. Jeeves appeared. Sir? Yes, Jeeves? I thought you called, sir. No, Jeeves. Very good, sir. There are moments when, even under the eye of Aunt Agatha, I can take the firm line. And now, seeing Jeeves standing there with the light of intelligence simply fizzing in his every feature, I suddenly felt how perfectly footling it was to give this preeminent source of balm and comfort the go-by, simply because Aunt Agatha had prejudices against discussing family affairs with the staff. It might make her say "gore" again, but I decided to do as he ought to have done right from the start, put the case in his hands. Jeeves, I said, this matter of Uncle George? Yes, sir. You know the circs? Yes, sir. You know what we want? Yes, sir. Then advise us, and make it snappy. Think on your feet. I heard Aunt Agatha rumble like a volcano just before it started to set about the neighbors, but I did not wilt. I had seen the sparkle in Jeeves's eye, which indicated that an idea was on the way. I understand, sir, that you have been visiting the young person's home? Just got back. Then you no doubt encountered the young person's aunt? Jeeves, I encountered nothing else but. Then the suggestion which I am about to make will, I feel sure, appeal to you, sir. I would recommend that you confronted his lordship with this woman. It has always been her intention to continue residing with her niece after the latter's marriage. Should he meet her, this reflection might give his lordship pause. As you are aware, sir, she is a kind-hearted woman, but definitely of the people. Jeeves, you are right. Apart from anything else, that orange hair. Exactly, sir. Not to mention the magenta dress. Precisely, sir. I'll ask her tomorrow morning to meet him. You see, I said to Aunt Agatha, who was still fermenting in the background, a ripe suggestion first crack out of the box. Did I or did I not tell you? That will do, Jeeves, said Aunt Agatha. Very good, madame. For some minutes after he had gone, Aunt Agatha strayed from the point a bit, confining her remarks to what she thought of a Wooster who could lower the prestige of the clan by allowing menials to get above themselves. Then she returned to what you might call the main issue. Bertie, she said, you will go and see this girl again tomorrow, and this time you will do as I told you. But dash it, with this excellent alternative scheme, firmly based on the psychology of the individual, that is quite enough, Bertie. You heard what I said. I'm going. Goodbye. She buzzed off, little knowing of what stuff Bertram Wooster was made. The door had hardly closed before I was shouting for Jeeves. Jeeves, I said, the recent aunt will have none of your excellent alternative scheme, but nonetheless I propose to go through with it, unswervingly. I consider it a ball of fire. Can you get hold of this female and bring her here for the lunch tomorrow? Yes, sir. Oh, good. Meanwhile, I will be phoning Uncle George. We will do Aunt Agatha good to spite herself. What is it the poet says, Jeeves? The poet Burns, sir. Some other poet about doing good by stealth? These little acts of unremembered kindness, sir. Well, that's it in a nutshell, Jeeves. End of episode. Aunt Agatha really should listen to Jeeves. Bertie did, and it's brave of Bertie to go behind her back now. Or foolish. We'll see. And just a reminder, if you subscribe to my free newsletter at ravensview.substack.com, you'll get notified of my updates as soon as they're ready. Plus, you can browse the various short stories and musings I have in there. If you enjoy this reading or have other classics you'd like to hear, do leave me a comment. Check out my other posts on my Substack, and remember to share this with your friends. Ta-ta for now.